The Ohio Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources is now in order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair Landis. Here. Ranking Member Hicks Hudson. Senator O'Brien. Senator Wilkin. We do not have a quorum.
Well, we don't have a quorum, but we will continue to operate as a subcommittee informally until we get another member or two here who's probably in other committees. Meanwhile, would the committee like to take a look at the minutes so that when the time does come, we can approve them? We'll skip now to Senate Bill 119, Senator Bill Reineke's legislation. Testifying first, Commissioner Anthony Paradiso. I'm close. Seneca County, welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. Honorable Chairman Schaefer and Vice Chair Landis, I am Seneca County Commissioner Anthony Paradiso, and I am writing to you on behalf of the Board of Commissioners to express our steadfast support and deep appreciation for Senator Bill Reineke's proposed Senate Bill 119. As a representative of Seneca County, we have closely aligned ourselves with Senator Reineke in our shared commitment to confront the pressing issue of under-regulated, out-of-state trash and the imperative need for enhanced oversight over our landfill facilities. Like many others in Ohio, our county has experienced the adverse consequences of under-controlled waste disposal. The influx of out-of-state trash, primarily from New York, has raised significant concerns among our constituents and residents across Ohio regarding the well-being of our environment, the safety of our water sources, and the overall quality of life in our community and our state. Under the current regulatory framework, our ability to address this issue has been limited, leaving our residents feeling vulnerable and unheard. Senate Bill 119, as proposed by Senator Reineke, represents a crucial turning point in our collective efforts to ensure a safer, more secure community. The bill introduces essential changes to existing laws, granting regulatory agencies the authority and responsibility to exercise greater oversight over landfill facilities. This transformative shift in the law will empower these agencies to enforce stricter regulations, monitor waste disposal practices more effectively, and safeguard the health and well-being of our constituents. We wholeheartedly support the three major changes outlined in Senate Bill 119. Number one, improve process for local input. The bill recognizes the importance of local perspectives and community impact in landfill decisions. By requiring applications for new solid waste facilities or expansions to consider public benefit, convenience, and necessity, the bill ensures that our constituents have a voice in determining the future of our own community. This will rectify the long-standing issues and local voices being disregarded, ensuring the decisions regarding landfill operations and that they truly serve the best interest of our residents. I'll pause. Welcome, Senator. Should I keep going? Okay, thank you. Number two, increased and equalized fees. SB 119 offers a solution to the challenges posed by the federal interstate commerce law and Ohio's concern about out-of-state trash. Interstate commerce law prevents charging higher fees for out-of-state trash, inadvertently incentivizing other states to use Ohio as a convenient dumping ground. The bill aims to remedy this issue by equalizing disposal fees regardless of the origin of waste. It increases disposal fees by using the Consumer Price Index, crucial due to outdated fees not reflecting current costs associated with oversight of these facilities. By removing the unintentional incentives that attract out-of-state waste, the state can protect its environment and preserve its reputation. Another important provision in the bill is the equalization of fees regardless of the categorization of waste. The bill also establishes a local landfill oversight fund supported by a $1 per ton fee. empowering local health districts to enforce waste laws, and enhance oversight for community well-being. Through this comprehensive approach, the bill addresses the challenges posed by out-of-state trash, prioritizes the well-being of communities, and matches the size and scale of the landfill facility to the funding generated for the oversight. Number 3, Seneca County faces a unique situation within the Ottawa-Sandusky-Seneca Joint Waste Management District, which we're a part of. As one of 3 counties on the board, we bear the burden of collecting about 90% of the trash, resulting in nearly all the district's revenue originating from our county. However, the allocated budget by OSS, our solid waste district, for oversight at the landfill facilities in our Tri-County district is only $61,000 per year. That's a mere 2.4% of the district's total budget. This imbalance forces our residents to endure the majority of the problems associated with having a landfill, while the necessary regulatory agencies receive inadequate resources for their oversight. Despite our efforts to advocate for increased oversight funding, our county faces challenges within this board. The interests of the other 2 counties often outweigh ours, leaving us outvoted on decisions that directly impact our community. Furthermore, it has been evident that under current laws, leaving Tri-County district like ours is difficult, if not impossible. In light of this situation, our county urgently requires an exit strategy. SB 119 provides the solution we need by giving us the option to create our own district. We can allocate significantly more funding for oversight, addressing the specific concerns, priorities of our community. This change would strengthen oversight measures, instilling confidence in our constituents, and assuring them that their health and well-being are our top priorities. In closing, the Seneca County Board of Commissioners commends Senator Reineke for his unwavering dedication and tireless effort in championing this vital legislation. Senate Bill 119 aligns perfectly with our county's vision to protect the health and safety of our constituents while fostering a sustainable, thriving community. We wholeheartedly support this bill as it offers transformational opportunity to confront the waste disposal challenges that plague our county and have done so far too long. We urge each of you as members to lend your support to SB 119 and join us in creating a safer, more sustainable future for all of Ohio. By enacting this legislation, you will affirm your commitment to protecting the interests and well-being of the communities in Ohio and ensuring a cleaner environment, fostering a sense of security among our residents and the residents of Ohio. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions if you have any. Board of Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and I'll note, just as you said, all 3 of you have signed this letter, so you're speaking for the whole board, correct?
Yes, sir.
Great.
And we're all here
Oh,
today.
excellent, excellent. Wave your,
Yes.
2 gentlemen,
Thank
welcome. Questions from our 2 former commissioners? I do have one quick one for you. I notice, and pardon me if I can't find the passage in here, where you talk about the problems with this or a landfill that is in a similar situation. What is the current actual problem you're experiencing? Is there a rodent problem, smell problem, a site problem? What is going on in your county that, if I were a visitor and you were to take me driving by, I would find offensive? What is the actual problem? I understand your fear of the future, but have some environmental engineers told you, hey, you're going to have a problem with groundwater? Do you have a rodent problem now? What's the on-the-street problem right now?
So thank you, Chairman Schaefer. So why would we do this, and why now? We, as our community, the solid waste district and the laws provide, and the local health department is tasked with oversight. And there are a lot of activities that are going on at the current landfill. The landfill has a pending permit to expand, and there are a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. We just do not have the resources or the funding to provide the proper oversight. So I think it begins with that. We want to be sure that our residents in our community, like every other community, when there's an issue, they feel that proper oversight is being delivered. And due to the structure, as I've outlined, the funding just isn't there. So it's kind of our word against their word.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank all three commissioners for attending.
Thank you,
Next up,
Commissioner
Susan Platt, proponent. And if you don't mind, let me take care of a little bit of housekeeping business before you start. Since we have a quorum in the room, has the committee had a chance to look at the minutes and evaluate the minutes? Any changes or any alterations? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as distributed. And thank you for the reminder, Mr. Clerk. Please proceed. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Schaefer, Vice Chair Landy, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and the members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee. My name is Susan Platt, and I am a resident of Loudoun Township in Seneca County. I am honored to be here today to offer proponent testimony for Senate Bill 119 on behalf of other Seneca County residents affected by the massive amount of out-of-state trash arriving by rail to our community. I would like to highlight a few very important provisions in Senate Bill 119 that will provide Ohioans more local control and put us on the same level playing field as other states. Ohio trash rates per ton have not changed since 1992. These very low rates make it very profitable for New York and other eastern states to send and dump toxic waste, medical waste, and construction material containing lead and other hazardous materials into our community. Sunny Farms landfill is located in Seneca County, and 97% of their trash stream is out of state and arrives via rail. The owners of the landfill are not Ohio residents and have the benefit of making millions of dollars by putting our health and safety at risk. Train derailments coming to the landfill are the norm. We actually have pictures of a train derailment that took place just in the last 30 days. Unfortunately, the Ohio EPA is not assisting us in ensuring proper monitoring of the landfill. In a public meeting on May 11 with the Ohio EPA, the following question was asked, and we do have video and audio to give to you if you would like to see it. How many times, and they were asked, how many times did the Ohio EPA test groundwater at the landfill in the last 12 months? The answer, none. The follow-up question was, is the Ohio EPA planning to test the groundwater in the next 12 months to provide peace of mind to the residents around the landfill? The answer, we have limited staff. We deserve better. Ohioans deserve better. We ask you to please consider approval of Senate Bill 119 to ensure proper and fair rates for all trash coming to Ohio's landfills. We are ordinary people who work, live, and raise our children and watch our grandchildren grow up in this beautiful state. Many of us are families that have Ohio Century farms in Seneca County. As a Fostoria City school teacher, I work for the future of students with dreams and determination to continue living the American dream in their hometown. We don't have the money, we don't have the expertise to fight a multi-million-dollar business. You will probably hear from the landfill representatives during the opponent testimony how everything is sunshine and rainbows. Please don't be fooled. Please listen to the local citizens who are directly affected by the landfill. Please take the time to come and see the disaster that they are leaving behind. Hundreds of train cars with out-of-state trash are sitting along the roads in Seneca County. Rain and snow create toxic water that runs into our ditches, creeks, and rivers. As a result, Drinking water around the landfill is contaminated. Often the air is unbreathable. We poisoned our community by allowing out-of-state businesses to dump in our backyard. Our only hope now sits in your hands. We are pleased to support Senate Bill 119 and would like to thank Senator Reineke for introducing this bill to ensure that Ohioans are protected from the toxic and hazardous out-of-state trash coming to Ohio. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, thank you, Ms. Platt, and thank you for your dedication to the kids of Seneca County. I assume that's where you teach as well?
Yes, it is. 45 years.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
I love it.
Any questions? Yes. We'll go with Senator Wilken first and then Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations on 45 years of teaching.
Thank you.
I taught for one spring during COVID and realized that my kids hated their homeschool teacher.
I can understand.
My compliments. Just a quick question. You made the comment about contaminated water. Do you or do the county, does anybody have tests to that we could possibly get copies of?
I will yield that through the chair to Senator Reineke. Is there anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on, we got Vice Chairman Landis here.
Oh, sorry.
Well, thank you. And again, it kind of dovetail off of, thank you, Chairman, off of what Senator Wilken was just asking also. And basically, I was going to ask for records also, you know, what's on file. So I will take that as the same answer, is that we can get information from Senator Reineke then.
Yes.
So it was the same question. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got
Thank you again.
One follow-up I just thought of. Do you still have, hundreds of train cars with material waiting in the
Yes.
queue to dump?
Sitting in Fostoria on railroad tracks.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, Jim Fiesel, the proponent. Maybe in the hallway, Jim Fiesel. Well, we can come back to Jim later if Jim is here. Elliot Schaefer, interested party. Welcome, and no relation, I don't believe, but.
Correct. No C. Do you want to do the video first, or would you like me to?
Pardon me?
I have a video. Would you like to show that first?
It's your choice. If you want to show that first, or if you want to set it up for us so we know what we're watching, whatever you wish.
I'll do my spiel first, and then we'll do the
That's
video
fine.
after. That's cool. Okay. Hello, Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Chair Landis, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resource Committee. My name is Elliot Schaefer. As a lifelong resident of Fostoria, Ohio, and I am honored to give testimony here today and to urge you to move forward with Senate Bill 119. Throughout the 33 years I have lived in Fostoria, out-of-state trash has had a presence in Seneca County and on the outskirts of our town. Located in Loudon Township, Sunny Farm Landfill received an estimated 7,500 tons of out-of-state trash, or waste, a day by rail. In my career, working with Fortune 50 and 500 companies, I have had the privilege of having a number of mentors who educated me on process improvement, and the one hard, fast rule that we followed was that you don't blame the person. You improve the training and the process to achieve the desired result. Right now, we have let an archaic process that was created over 30 years ago stand for too long. With out-of-state trash rail fees at their current rate, we are incentivizing the transportation of hazardous construction debris to our community. The time has come to put an end to the disparities that are harming our communities and make improvements that will support those same communities and help them flourish for years to come. In a Fostoria City Council meeting earlier this month, OSS Director Gary Beatty, or the Waste Management District, stated that 83% of the OSS revenue comes from Seneca County and Sunny Farms landfill. From their website, OSS states that its mission is to ensure quality waste stream management for its residents and to foster long-term positive solid waste habits, including recycling, reducing, reusing, and buying of recycled products. Fostoria has no recycling program. It was removed, as was Fostoria's access to Loudon Township Recycling Center. A new process has yet to be established, while other communities a part of the OSS are benefiting from the recycling programs and sort recycling materials. While OSS does educate our community on recycling, without programs to support recycling culture, our children will not see a clean future. The education is useless without action. For more perspective, I want to share some geographic information. Sunny Farms landfill sits at roughly 900 feet in elevation, right next to the east branch of the Portage. The Fostoria watershed is right next to it as well. The east branch runs to Fostoria at roughly 720 feet in elevation, and then to Lake Erie. The landfill and surrounding areas are rich in porous limestone, and the water table sits at a range of 5 to 30 feet. This introduces the potential for hazardous waste to find its way downhill and into our watershed, and by extension, the very water we drink. The landfill started operation in 1970, but it was not until 2022 that it was documented as a potential risk to surface water by the Ohio EPA Surface Water Division. In a meeting in Fostoria earlier this month, the Ohio EPA Surface Water Division stated that they had never tested surface water from Sunny Farms landfill. The landfill is trusted with self-monitoring and testing. As a father of a 5-year-old who at 6 months old was given a rare 1 in a million cancer diagnosis called hepatoblastoma, I know firsthand the importance of recognizing the environment's effects on your health. The absence of oversight and mismanagement of fees has been felt throughout our community, and I ask with the most sincerity to please help us and all Ohioans by supporting Senate Bill 119. Thank you.
And thank you very much, and God bless you in your plight with your son's illness, and
Thank you.
hopefully he gets well. You doing well?
He's doing very well.
Good,
yes.
good. Thank you.
Only high-frequency
Thank you.
hearing loss, and he's beat it all completely, so,
Really?
yes. Chemotherapy, yeah.
Chemotherapy, yeah. Questions? Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I just want to kind of drill down on your background here a little bit.
Yeah.
In my career working with Fortune 50 and 500 companies, I've had the privilege of having a number of mentors who educated me on process and improvements. May I ask what your background is?
Supplier quality technician. I've worked for Marathon, and I've done operations for pipeline from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Detroit refinery.
Okay, very good. And follow-up?
Please.
And, you know, you cited the elevation, and I'm trying to find the exact quote there. Sunny Farms landfill sits at roughly 900 feet in elevation, right next to the east branch of the Portage River. This information that you supplied there, was that available from some type of document?
You can go to the state organizations that map elevations, and you can see them based on their systems that they have here located in Ohio. And then also USGS has documents as well.
One more follow-up. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate that. So basically, the statement that you've made here was taken from your own research?
Correct.
And that it's in your own words. It wasn't something that was, taken from a...
Yeah, this is all available
Okay,
to the
that
public.
helps me very, very well that you've done the research and things like that. So thank you very much, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? I've got one follow-up to Vice Chairman Landis. The following paragraph, you say the landfill started operations in 1970, but not until 2022. That was documented as a potential risk to surface water by the EPA.
Correct.
What documentation is that? When we say risk, it could mean one thing to you, it could mean something else to me.
So,
Has there been a demonstrated problem, or is it just there and it's a risk?
so this was a statement that was given to the EPA during one of the last meetings, and it was brought to our attention that the EPA Surface Water Division had gone out and made observations, but in their documentation, they failed to notify us or notify anybody that one of the potential risks, just saying potential risk, was the landfill. So that being said, it not being a potential risk, they weren't actually observing it and making tests and doing those sort of things. So.
And I don't want to reduce the meaning of that statement, but did you interpret it to be imminent risk? Is there an imminent problem? Kind of like with a dam holding water back that, engineers will look at it and say, oh, this thing is solid, it's going to hold another 10, 20 years perhaps, or is there an imminent risk of
So just from my own perspective, at 900 feet in elevation, there's going to be a lot of water that comes off of that hillside. And those go into those containment ponds, which then, once that debris settles to the bottom of the containment ponds, it's then released into whatever body of water, whether it's the Portage or the Wolf Creek. My concern is when we have those downpours, those deluges. You've seen at Lake Erie when runoff happens and you see a lot of sediment go into Lake Erie. My concern is there's going to be a rush of water, and those hard metals, those plastics, all those things could be potentially a risk in going into those bodies of water.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, committee? Thank you.
Cool. And then the video.
Oh, do you have a video? Yes, please. Almost forgot.
There's sound, yeah.
The health and safety of Ohioans is at great risk due to the amount of out-of-state waste and lack of hands-on testing and monitoring done by the Ohio EPA. 99% of waste at Sunny Farms landfill comes from the East Coast due to lack of regulations, lack of local monitoring, and outdated waste fees. With 7,500 tons of trash a day coming in on unlined and uncovered rail cars through Fostoria, train derailments occur very often, and we cannot have another East Palestine in our state. Ohio is a home rule state. Local control shall be provided to the county regarding solid waste and landfill monitoring. According to the Ohio EPA, water drain-off samples are not being tested by the state agency. Private landfills conduct their own monitoring. Unfortunately, the Ohio EPA has not performed any environmental studies or local health surveys. Senate Bill 119 will ensure proper fees for out-of-state trash, local control and monitoring of Ohio's landfills, and local control regarding solid waste district boards. Please follow Senate Bill 119, introduced by Senator Bill Reinke. Thank you, Ohio lawmakers, for fighting for the health and safety of all Ohioans.
Very good. Any questions from, yeah, Senator Wilken.
Thank you, Chairman. Just curious, the picture of the shoreline with all the trash blown in, is that up in your area?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chairman Landis.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you again for sharing the video, Mr. Schaefer. In your knowledge, and just your knowledge, and maybe this could go to the county commissioners also, but are there any violations on file with the county or with the state, violations from this particular landfill in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years?
Well, okay, is there any recent?
I have been told that there's been violations from different people. Myself, I can't be credible with that and give you any type of documentation. But from the landfill themselves, they've stated that they have had no violations. But we've seen different things happen over the years, and we'd like to see a lot of reduction in what we've been encountering, whether it's been the smell or any debris that's been blowing off of it. And they are taking measures, but I think we need to try to do better.
Follow-up? And thank you for that answer. I just want to drill down just a little bit more, though.
Yeah.
Violations versus citations. If that's something that the chair's office could get, maybe a record of citations, which means that there was a violation, that there was a finding, and that there was a fine, and maybe a corrective action requested. Something like that might be very advantageous for us to have also. Would that be, please?
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And we'll follow that up. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Next up, Donald Kuhn, the proponent. And welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Schaefer, Vice Chair Landis, and the members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. My name is Donald Kuhn, and I'm a resident of Seneca County. I'm here today to provide proponent testimony in support of SB 119. We have been suffering the effects of the waste by rail in our community for almost 2 decades. The citizens were never given a vote on the matter, and suddenly a rail spur appeared, and we became a dumping ground for many other states. For years, we have been told that there isn't anything anyone can do because of the Interstate Commerce Clause. We all asked ourselves, why is trash considered commerce, and why should a foreign investment company be allowed to negatively impact our entire community? Shouldn't the people have a voice, and shouldn't our health and property rights matter? We were initially told that we were just getting construction and demolition debris. It was described as just wood and nails. Unfortunately, we discovered that construction and demolition debris is particularly dangerous due to the nature of these materials, which contain toxic solvents, adhesives, pigments, coatings, and some of the common chemicals include ethyl benzene, methyl chloride, and toluene. They all produce risks because landfills ultimately fail to contain hazardous leachate they produce. The other problem was gypsum drywall. When mixed with other solid waste and exposed to rain or snow, causes the breakdown of hydrogen sulfide gas. After a few years, we began to experience extremely high hydrogen sulfide gas levels that made it unbearable to live in our town. The problem became so extreme that people were unable to smell the gas, or were able to smell the gas over 10 miles away. We couldn't sit outside, open our windows, and eventually it seeped into our homes, our cars, nursing homes, and even the hospital was affected. The citizens started experiencing bloody noses, migraines, asthma attacks, and respiratory disease. In 2018, the Attorney General's office got involved and started taking public statements on the health effects in the area. By 2019, another consent order was written. Unfortunately, they were given another pass in exchange for a settlement that didn't help our situation. The landfill gas is now burned off in a flare system that produces sulfur dioxide. Now we have high sulfur dioxide instead of another, and it's another harmful gas. The other problem we face is that municipal solid waste permit in Ohio includes all solid waste. So we discovered that we were getting construction and demolition debris, but we were also getting what is called specialty waste. That includes industrial and residential waste, as well as contaminated soil and ash that are known to pose risks to human health. In 2017, our town received 456,000 tons of contaminated soil from Boston without any public notice. This, combined with the fact that waste is entering as shredded material, means that contents are unknown and untested. We have no way of knowing what is actually in the 75 leaking rail cars that enter each day. The OEPA has admitted they cannot provide the funding for necessary testing and oversight, even though our landfill brings in millions of dollars that go to the OEPA. The rules for the landfill, written long before waste by rail landfill existed, and many of these problems were never considered. SB 119 is a great step forward to improving the situation we face in Ohio. We must protect our environment and protect our citizens from harm. While we are all in favor of economic development, it should not be happening at the expense of others' health, safety, and quality of life. Safe waste management can be accomplished if more protections are in place, and if one area isn't forced to take on the burden of another state's waste problems. We don't deserve to live in fear of what's coming next with the expansion permit looming over all of us. Please vote yes on SB 119 to start this important process to provide protection to Ohioans. Thank you for listening.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your testimony, and we didn't have the page 2 on our copies, but we will make sure we get it.
Oh, my wife
back-
submitted it, yeah, it was on the back.
Do you happen to remember if we got it on email? Does this ring a bell at all? You got the initial, okay, good. Well, let's circulate, oh, would you mind just giving us your page 2? That way we can scan it and get it to everybody,
Sure.
so that we have a complete copy, if you would. Thanks. Kind of an unusual request, but appreciate your accommodating us, because we want to make sure we have your entire testimony on file. So, questions from the committee? Okay, I do have one quick question, follow-up. As a follow-up to the Vice Chairman's questions, I was going to see if we can get from EPA how much this landfill and/or the company have paid in fees to the state of Ohio. And you say millions, which kind of surprised me. Do you know a number or a rough figure
No, I
offhand?
can't give you that right offhand, but there are some other presenters, I think, that would have that information that
Okay,
have been
excellent.
at it longer than I have.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much.
You.
Next up, Dr. Clay Wolf, proponent. And did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Oh, good.
Thank
Welcome.
you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Schaefer, Vice Chair Landis, and the members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resource Committee. My name is Dr. Clay Wolf. I am here today to support Senate Bill 119 and to thank Senator Reineke for his work on the bill. I currently serve as the president of the Seneca County Board of Health. Although I am not speaking today in my official capacity and am not speaking on behalf of the Board of Health. As an Ohioan, a lifelong Fostoria resident, a doctor, a father, and a business owner in Seneca County, I feel compelled to speak out on behalf of the community that has been so negatively affected by problems related to out-of-state waste shipped into the county by rail. This problem not only affects my community, but communities all across Ohio. Currently, a landfill in our small town is receiving over 2 million tons of waste per year, the majority of which is from out of state. The landfill will receive 3.2 million tons of waste per year if an expansion sought by the landfill is approved. The landfill has illegally released large quantities of hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide gases from rotting waste into the air, resulting in noxious odors that have forced children to restrict their outdoor activities. The landfill's violations of the air pollution laws and water pollution laws have resulted in a number of court orders in attempts to address the landfill's unlawful conduct. The problems I speak of are not unique to Seneca County. These problems exist across the entire state of Ohio. These landfills have a negative socioeconomic impact both currently and will for many generations to come. Ohioans are harmed by the negative stigma, the constant risk of fire and derailments, and the risk of harmful toxins entering our state and our communities and leaking unlined and uncovered rail cars from the East Coast every single day. Our soil, air, and water, and most importantly, the health of our citizens are at risk. Lake Erie is at risk of contamination from our rivers being polluted by out-of-state waste. Numerous communities are losing businesses, seeing reduced property values, experiencing a diminished quality of life, and incurring added health expenses. Other states are passing legislation to stop the building of new landfills in their state. Their solution is to ship their waste out and dump it on Ohio, where low and outdated disposal fees enable them to increase their profits. We cannot continue to be the East Coast dumping ground for contaminated soil and other harmful waste that can pose health risks and can ultimately lead to massive cleanup costs in the future if liners eventually leak and contaminate the groundwater. This bill will help the state to protect against the environmental disaster that looms over our state. The low disposal fees and obstacles to local control and public input have all contributed to the situation. This legislation will provide the state and local governments with added revenue to detect and protect all Ohioans from the environmental threats posed by waste generated inside and outside of Ohio. As expanding landfills swallow up valuable farmland, they reduce the value of surrounding properties and impair the lives of nearby residents. Neighboring homeowners have no other recourse than to sell their homes to the landfill, thus perpetuating the landfill's expansion into and damage to their communities. Trash mountains continue to expand to over 500 acres in just our town alone. It needs to stop. We must protect our air, soil, and water for current and future generations. Thank you for your time and your consideration of this very important matter that Ohio is facing. Please support Senate Bill 119, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Wolf. Any questions? One follow-up question. You have what sounds like documented evidence of air violations and things by this particular facility?
There's been violations over the years, yes.
Violations from the Board of Health or the EPA or who?
That was prior to my being there, but I think, to my knowledge, through the EPA and through the Board of Health before.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else? Very good. Thank you. Next up, Nate Heiser as a proponent. Heiser or Heiser? Heiser.
Heiser, yep.
Heiser.
Heiser.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, Chair Schaefer, Vice Chair Landis, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and the members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. My name is Nate Heiser. I'm a lifelong resident of Fostoria. I am honored to be here today to offer proponent testimony for Senate Bill 119 on behalf of other Seneca County residents affected by the mass amount of out-of-state trash coming to our community. So I have a paper that I was going to kind of read off of, but you asked a lot of questions previous. I didn't know if I maybe kind of take a step back and introduce this whole thing to you and how it started and the reasons why the community was upset.
Anything you wish to do. This is your time to say what you wish, what's on your mind, and help us understand the
I
situation.
appreciate that very much. Thank you. So going back to 2018-19 is when we started to notice a significant increase in hydrogen sulfide. And at times, some of us weren't sure exactly what that was. And we just know it was a bad smell, and it could be from something. But eventually, we pinpointed it down to the landfill. And my sister lives right beside the landfill. And that's, in my statement, her husband's family farm, been there 3 generations, way before the waste by rail, no issues. So we have get-togethers at their house, and then we notice it really bad. And it got real bad. You couldn't hardly breathe. And so that started kind of an uproar of the community. And my first health department meeting I went to after this got noticeably bad, I went there, standing room only. The entire room was full. The hallways were full, downstairs, upstairs. Everybody had enough. We all had enough. And so at that point, the board was not aware of the issues that was going on at the landfill. They felt like their hands were tied and they had no say in what was going on with the landfill. And so I made it my mission, if you will, for the next year to just understand the problem, figure out what's going on, who's responsible, and why those people aren't being held accountable. And so that led me to the Health Department, Board of Health. That led me to the Solid Waste District, the Policy Committee within the Solid Waste District, the Commissioners, and the EPA. And I think my first meeting was probably with the EPA. And at that point, they told me that this landfill has more hydrogen sulfide problems than any other landfill that they monitor in the state of Ohio. It was the most problematic landfill with hydrogen sulfide that they have had, that they monitor in the state of Ohio. And that was the Bowling Green office. John Pascaret is his name. He's the one that told me that. And so I said, well, how did this happen? Well, it's up to the health department. They're the #1 enforcing agency for the landfill. So I go back to the health department and say, hey, you guys are the ones that are responsible here. The EPA just told me. No, we aren't. They're the ones that are responsible. So you get this finger pointing back and forth. Okay, now I go to the Solid Waste District, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Who's right, who's wrong? So we go to the Solid Waste District, and then I understand the joint agreement and how that impacts us. And so when we go there, there's the joint, and you can stop me anytime to ask questions. I'm okay with that. We go to the joint agreement, or the solid waste district, their meeting, made up of 9 commissioners, 3 from Seneca, 3 from Sandusky, 3 from Ottawa. Our commissioners don't want this. They don't want the expansion. They don't want the landfill to run as it is. So what they do is say, well, we want out. The other commissioners say, too bad. It's 6-3. We outvote you. You're staying in because we want that money from the landfill because it's split 3 ways between 3 counties equally when they live an hour away from the problem. So they don't want to give up their money, okay? So what we got to do is they don't want to give up the money that's coming into their county. So we asked to make improvements for oversight. They want nothing to do with it. Well, add me on the policy committee that helps make the rules for the host agreement, which the host agreement is where all the rules are laid out for the operation of the landfill. And that agreement is based on the commissioners, and they vote on it. So if our commissioners want to vote, we want to reduce the tonnage because there's a problem. It's a 6-3 vote. They don't have a say. And that's how unfair that joint agreement was. So we met with the attorney for the solid waste district, and he was there, so we had some conversations, and we talked how the landfill lied about the waste that they received. It was like 500,000 or something like that I don't have that, didn't plan to speak on that, or I'd have had those figures, and misrepresented their waste, lied, and they had to pay a settlement out, over $1 million settlement because they lied about their waste. So I'm getting off track, sorry. But the joint agreement and the policy committee that makes those rules, they did everything they could to keep me off of it because I was going to ask questions, just like a normal person would, ask questions why. This policy committee doesn't even understand the power they have. So the solid waste district's got them fooled into thinking that they've got to approve, appropriations for pizza parties and things like that, and then, some recycling. But they make the rules for this host agreement. And we want this host agreement to reflect the values of Seneca County residents, which it did not. We wanted more oversight. And so going from the solid waste district back to the health department, they wanted nothing to do with more oversight. The solid waste district didn't want to fund more oversight. They didn't want to do more testing, which is the things that we wanted to make us feel good about what we're doing. So the health department, we said, hey, okay, we want oversight, and that's what's in this bill is more oversight, which is what we need. The health department says for the most problematic landfill that the EPA monitors in the state of Ohio, they hire somebody right out of college as a sanitarian, the same person that would go in and get temperatures from your kitchen in a restaurant, to monitor the most problematic landfill in the state of Ohio in terms of hydrogen sulfide. And so he has no clue what's going on. And so they're trying to get him caught up, which doesn't work. We need a person that's going to understand the consent order. I'll get into that here in a second. Understand the consent order. They need to understand what the readings of the water are in the wells. Everybody's just turning a blind eye and pointing the finger to somebody else like it's somebody else's problem. No accountability. We need local control. And that's what this is going to do. Bring everything back to Seneca County, and we can make the decisions based on those commissioners. So, we did have a host agreement amended back in 2018, which is exactly what we wanted for quite a while. And when that was amended, what that did was it took away the only oversight at the landfill that we had, which was not in best interest of the Seneca County residents. Reserve capacity. So this joint agreement, you've got landfills in Ottawa County, you've got landfills in Sandusky County, you've got landfills in Seneca County. This landfill will shut down next year. It will be full if they do not get this expansion. So we are in a joint agreement, meaning that we share those other landfills. So when this one fills up, oh, it's okay, guys. We got another landfill for you an hour away. That's in district. So you'll still pay the same. We'll still have a place for your trash to go. But if we were out of that joint agreement, the host agreement says that you have to have reserve capacity for 20, 30 years in this place. And that's what we want. And we're not trying to shut it down. We want reserve capacity. We want local control. So raising the fees, that is also a much-needed step. Make us less favorable for out-of-state dumping. And she had spoke earlier that it hasn't been done since '92. So is there any questions on the joint agreement? Okay, I'm going to continue to the consent order. So back in 2018, when all these problems started happening, hydrogen sulfide, so 15 is the number on site, on their property in terms of hydrogen sulfide. A 15 parts per billion is bad, okay? They want it to be under 15. So I have a bunch of rentals in town. I have an apartment complex, got 45 tenants there. One day, this is probably 6 miles away, we get a stench coming across the city into the complex. My tenants are out wondering what the heck's going on, so I call the odor complaint number. They send a guy out to do a reading, and it's 28 parts per billion 6 miles away, and 15 is the limit on their property. And they had readings as high as 250 excess on their property. So the consent order, which in my opinion did not do us any justice, because what that did was it put them in a protected class. They were already in a consent order from the years prior. They haven't been out of a consent order and in compliance with state law for over 20 years. So they went from one consent order, which I call a behavior plan. When you're bad, you get locked into a behavior plan. And that's what that consent order is. It's a behavior plan. You've done so bad, the state's going to take over now. No, you're going to make these requirements because you're not doing it on your own, and we're going to force you, or else we're going to fine you a bunch of money. And so what the consent order did in 2018 is it took away the only leverage that the health department didn't know they had, which was enforcement, which was fining them, which was holding their feet to the fire. They didn't know they could do that. Apparently, they do now. So the consent order kicks in, and what that does, it took the health department out of the picture. Because now you've got this consent order, and what that consent order did is, because they were never going to make the limits that they were of emissions, they were 200 and some rolling tons a year. They were never going to make those emissions. So in the consent order, they quadrupled the limits so they could make the limits. They raised all the standards because they couldn't get in compliance when they were low. So the consent order took out our enforcement, the health department, raised the limits, and now they're operating under the disguise of compliance with a consent order. The consent order is not compliance with state law. You're still in excess. So they haven't been in state law compliance for 20 years. So for this expansion to even be on the table is just ridiculous. So the consent order allowed them to work outside of state law requirements without penalty, which goes into it, I'll segue into a PSD permit. So PSD permit, you're required, when you're 100 rolling tons a year, you have to have a PSD permit. That's just standard across the board. These guys have been over 100 rolling tons for 2 decades, never had a PSD permit. So I questioned the EPA on this. I said, what's going on? They go, well, back in 2014, we made a mistake, is what they told me. 2014, we made a mistake because there was 2 emissions sources at that facility, but they counted them independently instead of together. So they were counting, if one was, just say 90, the other one was 90, well, you didn't need a PSD permit because you're under 100, but combine them together, you're above 100. So they admittedly make that mistake. And if that would have been done in 2014, none of us would be here right now, because the PSD permit requires tighter regulations, they require strict oversight, the things that they want nothing to do with. And they fought this tooth and nail until now they're getting forced to have the PSD permit. But the problem is, they don't have to comply with the PSD permit until the consent order is finished. So that gives them another free pass to access the limits of the emissions, which makes no sense. They've been in violation of the Clean Air Act for decades. No one has said anything. They were caught illegally pumping leachate into the retention ponds around the landfill that we were shown had all the litter in it. They were illegally pumping leachate into those water runoff ponds that were going into Wolf Creek and going into where we get our city water from. And that is the EPA's document file. And I'll tell you another thing, that this is how we find a lot of problems, because you've got ex-employees that are jaded, and then they get fired, and then they come and say, well, here's what we know. And that is what happened in this case. They came to us and said, hey, there's an illegal sump pump in the transfer station, and it's pumping right into the water retention ponds. And I go, no way. And so I went to the EPA, drew them a map to find it. Big X circle right here. So they go to the facility. They find it. Did they find them? No. Did they document it? Yes. And so it was legal, violation of the Clean Water Act. And they made them rip it out. And that was the end of it. Which leads me to my point. They never go out there, ever. If they would have went there once and did an inspection, they would have seen that the catch basins were full in the transfer station, water was filling up, so they had to pump it out into the pond, and that happened. They had no clue. And that's been the moral of the story this whole time. We have to call the EPA and let them know what's going on. They go out, and they say, oh my God, you're right, our mistake. And then that's the end of it. We want more oversight, local control, and that's what this bill provides. So, you asked earlier about some of the fees that the EPA gets, getting in millions. They get a percentage of each ton. So the more tons that go into that facility, the more money they make. And the Bowling Green office in Wood County, EPA, if they didn't have Foster Oil Landfill, that would shut down. There's not enough money to sustain that. Similar to the solid waste district. If they didn't have this landfill, that would shut down. So they're trying to keep their jobs. They don't go out there, there's no problems. They get to keep their job. They get to keep the money coming in. And it's per pound, or per ton. So if they get an expansion, EPA is going to sign right off on it. Double the money coming into the EPA office. We're not about that. The violations, okay, so there is violations, and we can report tons of hydrogen sulfide exceedances through the roof. Okay, so when that consent order came through, those high exceedances were every day. And then the consent order happened, so it is panic mode. We need all this dirt. We need to put dirt on this landfill to hide this smell. We need to, normal landfills, I don't know, 3-4 foot or so, they're putting 10 feet on there. Oh, you still got to read and put more dirt on it. That's not compacted, effective soil that you would use. So they turned up flares, started burning more emissions off the flares, covered it with more dirt to try to hide the hydrogen sulfide. And in doing so, the emissions are 4 times what they were for the sulfur dioxide. Now you're getting sulfur dioxide smell all over. And it is sporadic, but it's still apparent. So the violations, there should be way more violations if somebody would just get out there and look around. They need to know what they're looking for. They need an inspector, some oversight. If they put somebody out there, everybody would feel much better. And that's what this bill provides. There should be way more violations. They just don't go. Appraisal is going down in the neighborhood. We talked about property values earlier. I've seen appraisals that list Sunny Farms landfill on them, and the reason why they can't get the money that they put into that house out of it. Says right on the appraisal, because of Sunny Farms landfill, waste by rail. Talked about the PSD permit, Clean Air Act. The scales didn't work for years. So there's no, they were using the scales in New York to verify the weights over here for years until the consent order came down and said you need to get these scales working. I'm still not sure they work. All right, so now I'm going to go back into my closing here. In closing, while this may have started as a not in my backyard issue, it has since been learned that this waste by rail problem exists all across Ohio. And the out-of-state waste is devastating communities all across the state, putting more toxins into Lake Erie. If nothing is done to stop the problem, we may be facing massive cleanup costs if multiple landfills start leaking across the state, when liners fail from C&D punctures, lack of oversight, and the potential for hazardous waste to enter and contaminate our groundwater all over Ohio. The cleanup costs could be astronomical, and the health impacts could also be financially devastating for Ohio. The short-term financial gain could never offset the damage done. We could ultimately become a Superfund state if this problem is ignored much longer. My sister, she lives right beside the landfill. There's her family farm. The air has ruined all good times we used to have there. They still, at times, have to hold their breath going from the car to the house. They lived there long again before the waste by rail started. Property value plummeted. No one will buy their house. A half a mile away, I was at my mother and father-in-law's house a couple weeks ago. Was going to help with an outside project. As soon as I get out of the truck, wham, stench hits you right in the face. And we're real close to the landfill. I immediately called the odor number to make a complaint. We did the whole project while breathing in hazardous air. Had a headache the rest of the day. We're getting tired of this situation. We should be able to enjoy our properties that we pay taxes on without breathing hazardous chemicals, while my nieces and nephews play in their own backyard. I would like to thank you for your time. Please do not hesitate to call and clarify any statements, especially if Wind Waste tries to contradict any of the facts that I just talked about. They like to repeatedly say that they are in compliance with the EPA. They have never been in compliance with state law. They are in compliance with the consent order, which is not law. That is a behavior plan. When you do bad things, you go into a consent order. That is not compliance with state law. Please support this bill. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Senator Wilkin.
Thank you again, Chairman. Thank you so much for your passion on the issue. Just a couple of questions. I just want to make sure that I've got everything right. Do you have any idea when was the last time that the leachate was pumped into ponds? Do you? And not like.
No, I believe that was 2018 that happened, and I wouldn't say that they didn't put it back in, but I don't know.
Okay. And to be clear, so the numbers that are hitting now are the inflated, the higher numbers based on the consent order, not by state law, is what you're saying?
Yes, so the emissions, the rolling tons per year on the emissions off the flares, so the hydrogen sulfide permeates from the hill, and the emissions are measured through the flares. So when they raised the emissions in the flares, that brought the hydrogen sulfide down, the numbers down by putting all the soil on, turning up the flares. But that caused way more emissions coming out of the flares, and they upped it like 3 or 4 times what they used to have in the consent order.
I apologize, Chair. Follow up. And this is because I don't know, and I know we got a lot of good people here from Seneca County, so please don't throw anything. I'm just curious, does anybody know, because I don't, if a county leaves a solid waste district, what does that do to the district or to the other 2 counties? And I'm asking because I don't know.
No, that's great. So here's what will happen. Seneca County will create their own solid waste district, their own solid waste board. Those other entities will do the same thing. They may stay together in their own joint agreement. I doubt it because the money's gone. They'll probably go back to their own counties, but that's what would happen. They would have to, I mean, they may not even start one. That would be up to them, but I know we're going to have a solid waste district and a solid waste board because that gives us more control.
Last one, please. Out of curiosity, I know you said there's one. Is there two? Is there a landfill in each of the other two counties, or just one?
Just Ottawa?
Okay.
And to that point, when I went over there to the meetings for the solid waste board, the other commissioner looked me right in the eye and said, we had a waste by rail for a little bit and you guys got money. Now it's your turn to bear the burden for us to receive the money. Not our commissioners, but that was, I think, Sandusky County Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Other questions? No. I got a couple. Following up, Senator Wilkin, do you know if there are any public documents documenting the release into the retention ponds or into creeks?
Yep.
If you know of any and forward them to my office, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. And then the pictures, they'll be devastating because those ponds are supposed to be clean, free of litter. You barely tell. I mean, it was nasty. And yes, that's all documented, and the EPA has that on file as well. But I will make sure that gets to you.
Okay, excellent. Last chance for questions? Very good. Thank you very much. And like Senator Wilkin mentioned, thank you for your passion.
Unfortunately. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have written testimony from L. Ray Burns as a proponent, Rachel Harmon, promote wise land use proponent, and Cyril Reinhardt as an interested party. I assume those are all written, and if those individuals wanted to present the testimony, they're welcome to if they happen to be here. And is there anyone else here to testify on this legislation? Seeing none, that will constitute this hearing on Senate Bill 119. And with no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.